This session is on sewing. Now, where does this fit into rigging? Well, there are a lot of occasions where you have to put a sleeve on an object to prevent chafe or repair a tear on a piece of material, such as an awning or a sail. Put patches on items, and the sewing may either be in using the sailcloth, canvas, or in some cases for rigging protection as an anti-chafe medium, putting leather around a stay or object in the rig. So let's have a look at what tools you might be able to acquire or use for this purpose. Where shall we start? Okay, first of all, needles. These come in different sizes. They've got a tip which is shaped, diamond shaped, which is good for pushing through the material, opening it up for the rest of the shaft, the eye and the thread to come through. So they're different sizes, and this one is a size 14, which is, I find, is quite a suitable general tool. Just a thing on, because in sewing you may have to go through multiple layers of material that will be hard to push through, so we'll use the sailor's thimble, which is a palm. There's right-handed and left-hand ones. There's roping palms and sewing palms. This one here is a sewing palm that fits on your hand, and you can hold your needle resting the eye in the iron here, and then using that, the force, start it, rest the iron on it, put your fingers each side and push with your palm, push it through. Just a word of warning, if at any stage you have a really thick job through about half a dozen layers of canvas, requires more force than you've got in your palm, and you wish to use things like pliers, do not grip this part of the needle, the tip, as you could create grooves or whatever in the steel, and this then makes it difficult to pass through. If you have to grip a needle with pliers, grab it at the shank here and pull it or push it through. So a small pair of pliers can be handy. So that's our needle. Now thread, there's waxed thread, unwaxed thread and so forth. This is round waxed thread, and this is flat waxed thread. Both are synthetic, very strong. The flat thread is good for using on synthetic materials, as once it's sewn it lays flat. A round thread would lay on the surface, as you can see with these stitches here, and therefore subject to chafe. If you used it on natural fibre, it would, when you've finished, it pushes down into the material, and chafe is not such a problem. Again, all sorts of different types of thread are available in different thicknesses, etc. Now, the next thing you need, incidentally, if you have a difficult job, you can use an awl, such as this, or a bricker, such as this, to put preliminary holes through your material. Again, for really thick jobs, makes it much easier to pass it through, and then you can follow that with your needle. Now these two are made. This one is made from a broken needle where the needle eye has broken and turned up this little handle, and you carefully put this part in your vise and you drive that down on top of it. It makes a very good little piercing tool. This fellow here, again, anybody who's worked down the shipyard and has used a needle gun, sooner or later they replace the needles in the needle gun, and those needles, although a little, no longer fit for purpose for the needle gun, are very good for making awls. The steel is very good and really holds the tip once you grind it on. Now you can either have a round tip, or this one it's got three faces on it. The idea of the three faces is that each of those edges of the triangle act as little knives, so when you push it into the canvas, it sort of cuts its way through. Again, big prickers like this would probably be used after those to widen out a hole. Of course, the inevitable knife comes in handy. This one here is they call them leather knives or craft knives. They're very good. This one's Sheffield made, picked up at an op shop. Actually picked up a whole bunch of them, and they're quite handy. And not so cumbersome to carry in your sewing kit. Another important implement with sewing are the things like this. These are called rubbers. This is a timber one made up, and this one here is a rubber made by a gentleman who used a piece of old file and smoothed the end of it. The object of a rubber is that you can, when you've sewn, you can then finish your job by pushing the thread down into the fabric. It's also good for if you are putting a patch on and you want to make a seam, you can do this and it creates a seam like so. This fellow works the same way. Again, this is an adaptation of things that are lying around. This one was specifically made. Now, another important aid for sewing is a sail hook. You can buy or acquire elaborate sail hooks, but a fishing hook like this one, and carefully file off the barb on the underside, is good with a length of cord. The object of this is that if you're going to be, say, sewing a tear, you can hook it in here and make it fast on the end of your workbench. And it gives you something to pull back on and hold the job while you're sewing. So that's for doing those. If you're doing seaming, you actually go the other way around. You put the hook behind you, attach it to something, and put it through here. Again, you could use your attach this back here behind you to your right if you're right-handed, and then with your needle and palm you can then go through and up, and it gives you something to push against when you're doing it. So that's an improvised sail hook. And of course a good pair of scissors as they go when handling material. This is a good pair of sewing ones, or if you really want to get flash you could invest in something like this. So that's a basic kit. You can expand on it at any time. A lot of tools, a bit like blacksmithing, where if you need a tool for a job, if you haven't got it and can't get it, you invent it. Incidentally, a couple of interesting gadgets are these machines. It's an older one. And these are sewing machines. With these you have, we lost our needles. These are sometimes handy for, well, these are handy for doing a lock stitch, much the same as your sewing machine does. You can then, you've got the thread here which goes through with a trailer on the end, and you can push it through, put the other end in, pull back and create a lock stitch in one go. And with your needles, of course, get yourself something to keep them in, stop them rusting or corroding. Now we're going to have a look at repairing a small tear in a sail. You've got your sail hook just to the end of the tear. Maybe you pull back as you want to. You can put two guidelines on here if you wish, so that you get your stitches even on each side of the tear. And you've got your palm, your needle. When you're selecting thread for a job, if you get enough thread just for one arm span, probably a bit more to double it up, that would be adequate for most things. Reason being that if you go through the thing, you can pull it through to one arm span, and you're not always having to put your needle down and picking it up and pulling thread through. So this one starts, you come back from your tear, go in and out, pull it through, leaving a little tail, and you go in on the line and out, pull it through and move along to here, go to here, go in and out. Oops. Through it. And go. Haven't got to the tear yet, so you can just go in here and out. Move along. This time we'll come out through the tear, through the loop. Pull your threads up as you go, but not too tightly that you create an overlap. Then through. And up through the tear. Spacing is your choice. I'm doing it wide here so it's easier to see. Almost to the end. Now when you get to the end, you just do a couple more. Get to there. Give that a little bit of a rub. And then you can just take that down under those threads. Oops. Pull it through. And then chop it off. And you have your tear secured. In a situation where the tear or chafe is a bit ragged and would not be conducive to just doing the herringbone stitch, and might be too large, we then need to put a patch over it. So first step would be to mark out an area around it, and then select some material to make a patch to cover it, and then to fold it around like so, and put some strike marks on the patch and also on the material to act as a guide. These strike marks here to act as a guide, so when you start sewing, you get early warning of it actually drifting. So with your folding, you can then give those a good rub down. Notice on this we did cut the corners off so that the patch won't have any bulky spots there. Then it's a case of putting it on your material and hooking up your sailor's eye, or sorry, sailmaker's eye. Oh, I'll get it right in a second. Your sailmaker's hook, and hook it on here. Secure it back behind you. Give yourself something strong to pull against, and then start to sew. Single threaded do. And you'll notice all this sewing is actually mainly done from the top side, which again, if you're dealing with a big sheet of canvas or sail, it's very hard to keep turning it over. So it's a case of going in, turn at 45 degrees, push up, pull it through, you can tuck this end in there and hold it. In, advance 45 degrees, push it through. And so you go right round. When you come to a corner, take your sails hook out and put it, say, here, and then go along there and vice versa until you finally get round, and it looks like so. Now we're almost around the patch. Remember, at the corners you relocate your sail hook so that you're pulling against it. Now we'll just do the last couple of things here. Oops, I didn't quite allow enough thread for this. Anyway, right, once you've done that, give it a good rub down. This last tail, if you wished, you could just put it, we'll do that on the inside. So, now, the next step is to take your scissors and you can just and you can fold that under all the way around. And you press it down. And then proceed to stitch around here in the same manner as you did on the other side. As you can see, as I've gone around most of it, and so it's just a case of here going up to there and finish it up, trim it up, give it a good rubbing to settle it all down, and that will give you your patch over a large area, or larger than a cut anyway. Okay, so now go off and have a practice. Now there are numerous methods of protecting the rig from chafe or damage, and one is to use either a canvas sleeve, or this could be leather. You'll notice on the ship there are a number of places where, say on the main forestay, there's a leather cover around the stay as it goes around the foremast, and there's a number of others. Now you could use canvas. We have used canvas in the past to reduce chafe on, or put sleeves on on berthing lines, so that to reduce chafe at the hawse pipe. So here we have an example with our canvas sleeve on, and we've started to sew it on with a herringbone patch using a single needle and double threads, and so down here you can see after you've designed your sleeve, the canvas can be held in place by half hitching as you work along, and gives you a stable platform. This stitch is really just a over, under, as it goes along the line. You can, an alternative method is to use two needles where they cross over as they go down. That way you're effectively doing double stitching in case one patch got chafed. So we'll now have a look at a practical demonstration of that. Now we'll have a look at a practical example of putting a piece of canvas, say, around this line just to protect it. So first of all, you need to ideally secure it between two strong points. Just makes holding it a lot easier. So we put a prusik on here, which will then secure, and on the other end, in this case, we've got our sailmaker's needle. We'll just hook it in here somewhere and haul it back taut and make it fast. Right, now we need to put this canvas around here, so you could either make a paper pattern, and that'd be advisable if you're going to be using leather, but in this case we'll take a shortcut. We'll have a piece of canvas here which we're going to sew around here. That's just to check the diameter. Well, there's plenty there, so if you put it on upside down, we can then bring it around almost together. Just leave a little gap, because that will, as you sew and tension up, that'll pull together. Now, when you've worked that out, you can then put it down on a hard surface, taking your rubber, really crease it like so. Do the other side. Oops. Okay, then pop it round where we want to place it, and we'll put it around like this. See how it looks. It's not too bad. Oops, tuck that under, and then you could just secure that temporarily in place. Put a bashing around it. If you use your timber hitch, like so, draw that up taut. Oops. And then follow that with a few half hitches. This last one, just put a couple of turn or two under there, and then you can draw that up. So that holds it in position for you to start. Now, we're going to do this with 2 needles. In the previous one we showed one that was just done with 1 needle. So we we'll use this black thread in this case. So we make an arm length of that. 2 arm lengths should be enough for this length. And we put a needle on both ends. So bring the ends together. Now, if you find the middle, take your 2 needles and oops, and pull that back. So one needle, both those needles have two threads through that goes right through and comes back here, and these ends need to be a little bit longer than that. Now, in doing this exercise, or doing one of these, this little pricker is handy, which is so that you can start off. You could, you'll note this has got some holes pre-pricked in it. You could do those right along. This is probably, if you're using leather which is fairly thick, may even plan to actually mark these holes and use a very small drill to pre-drill them. In this case, we'll alright, so we'll go through here, and the other needle will go through this side. Needles together, and that should pull those up. Take your two ends here and tuck them down the sides out of the road. As you can tell, by the time you tighten this up, they'll really grip. Now, if you do come over here, put this one through the same hole, over there, and this one through the other side. And then you can draw these up. Put it together. If you need to put those down in the centre. Right. From here on in, you lead with your right hand. Is to go through there. Pull it through. The other needle goes, goes through here. And leading with the right hand in there. If that hole is not easy to do, just use a little pricker to open her up a bit. And this one here, you do the same thing there. As you can see, your pattern starting to develop. Lead with the right hand one. Run it through. This one goes in there, over the top, and periodically as you go along you can give that a bit of a rub, and if you need be you can tension each one of these threads as you go along. And so this continues until you get to the end. You can slide this along as you go to make it clearer. As you get towards the end, just keep going using your wicker to use the hole. On this side. Oops. And if you just give each individual cord a bit of a pull, the same on this side, 1, 2, and probably a bit of a rub with the rubber. Now, towards the end, we'll do the last one. Now again, just to give each one a pull. Right. Now, everything. This one back through here. And this one or the other alternative is to just push it down through your rope out the other side. This only works with a rope, so then you probably let off your sail hook. And give it a good rubbing. And there we have it. If you wanted to have a smooth finish, you would then probably have to worm and parcel it before laying on the sleeve, as in this example. Incidentally, that's a comparison between the two styles. This is a single needle, and this is using the two needles with double thread.